everyone, and welcome to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the advertising manager, and I get to be your host today. We want to thank our sponsor today. It is Cross Border Weavers, and they're doing this sponsorship in memory of one of their own, Ken Allen. And again, what a great way to honor someone and acknowledge them. Thank you so much with Cross Borders for doing this. We will take questions as always at the last 15 minutes of the program. If you would, please put them in the Q&A and not the chat. It's hard to see them in the chat, and I can always see them in the Q&A. We love your chat though. Keep that coming. That's wonderful. Today we have Lauren Stichweh. Lauren is a transmedia artist and textile designer, currently based in Athens, Georgia. She works primarily in hand weaving and has recently been experimenting with more sculptural kind of works. The abstract patterns and bold color combinations of her work create a world to explore identity, peering through the lens of childhood memories, queer experiences, and the scope of human connection. She received her BFA in fabric design from the Lamar Dodd School of Art at the University of Georgia in 2022. Lauren's piece received the third place award in Complex Weavers Award in the HGA Vistas along the Appalachian Trail Yardage exhibit in Convergence 2022 in Knoxville, Tennessee. We are so excited to have you here today, Lauren. Hello.
Hey,
There she is.
here.
Wonderful to have you here.
Thanks.
Well, the first question is, what is your favorite tea?
Probably Earl Grey. Usually drink it with oat milk and a little bit of honey. I'm gonna have some of that. I also love a London fog latte with that.
A what?
A London fog latte. It's like Earl Grey tea with milk and latte.
Oh, really? I've never heard that
Yeah.
one before.
It's really good.
All right. So how did you get started in fiber?
So for me, it started in college. I, as you said, went to UGA. I went in my freshman year. I had no clue what I wanted to do at all. Knew I wanted to pursue something creative. So I was in the art school undecided for my first couple semesters. But I ended up taking a CAD class for textiles that was there. It was doing like Photoshop and Illustrator pattern making for textiles, I think more accurately to describe it. I took that, which was the least hands-on fibers class that I could have taken, but I did love that. And then as I continued through the program and started weaving and everything, it was just no going back for me. Fell in love with it.
Oh, that's wild. That's an interesting, kind of like coming from the back door in a way. I mean, everybody usually talks about being a fiber person and then they get into the digital, but you did it the other way around.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, your work is very connected to your own personal history and your personal experiences. Would you tell us a little bit more about why those themes were so important for you to put into your artwork?
Yeah, for sure. For me, when I am working on a project, whether it's just in life or in work, especially so in my work, it becomes just very all-consuming for me. That process is very takes all my time and energy. I'm very much focused in the short bursts that you need, that type of work style. So for me, that just kind of naturally made sense that my work did come to be so involved in conveying themes that are so personal to me. Especially talking about expressing myself. I've never been somebody who considers myself great with words to express how I'm feeling. So also have also been a super visual learner since I was really young. I remember my mom telling me things about how in school I was awful to try to teach things because I needed to look at it right in front of me. So to me, it makes a lot of sense that a visual language has become the one that I use to communicate things like that. Also, my education and career at the beginning of my career have both come at a time in my life that a lot of changes going on, and I do have a lot of things to process. I'm still in my early 20s. My work is kind of where I spend all my time reflecting and responding to experiences in my life. And on top of all that, it also gave me the space to explore my queer identity, which has really been paramount in me understanding like who I am, because all of that realization also came at the time of beginning college. So it all kind of compiled into one, and yeah.
Well, you had an exhibit, or you have this piece of artwork. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. This piece of artwork is called Disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And it won an award at the exhibit it was in. And the artist seemed to have reasons for being in exhibits, and they all seem to be different, to try to sell or get your work out there or whatever. What was the pull for you to be in an exhibit?
For me, that I think exhibiting would be the dream, to be able to do that all the time. Just making whatever I want flexible to my own creative freedom. But this one in particular, this piece Disconnect, I made for my senior exit show in college, so about a year ago. And that whole show, the theme was about growing up as a queer child and sort of coming into adulthood and realizing like who you are, and finding like comfort and confidence in that as well. So I think that exhibiting gives me the most freedom in being able to express the things that I want to express in my work, because I know we're going to talk about like my job in the industry and my design career stuff a little bit later, but obviously in those things there's a few more like guidelines to what I need to be making, which is kind of a given in those situations. But for me, I do love exhibiting because I feel the most passion towards my work that is so personal, and I think that's where it really gets to shine.
Well, this is an amazing piece. Can you talk a little more about this? What is the Disconnect title mean for you?
So in my exit show, there was this piece, and then it came with an accompanying panel that was the same size, that you do have a picture of it later that everybody does get to see it. But they're titled Connect and Disconnect because during that show, I was again talking about like the queer childhood and also connections between like people and emotionally, and sort of talking about the difference between like, the best way I have to describe it is growing up, knowing you're different, kind of feeling out of place in a place that's supposed to feel like home. But then talking about how it's very common in the queer community, we talk about things like our chosen family, etc. Just I think the dichotomy between the feeling of disconnect between where you came from sometimes versus like what you can go out and find to feel so connected to, like there's people out there, trying to encompass that idea.
Well, you use and we're going to talk more about this later about the three-dimensional, but you've got these threads that are not connected into the weave.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of the disconnect for you? Is that they did not go into the weave?
Yes. Yeah. I like to think of my work as like abstractly representational. So like as much as it's very abstract and kind of like looks just like shapes and colors, for me, yeah, I put a lot of like literal conceptual ideas into the pieces I'm making, or at least I try to. And I'm glad that you see that like that, because that is as that was intended to be. Literally the woven is unraveling at the seams.
I love the contrast. You've got the nice, neat boxes, they're well proportioned. And then you've got the loose kind of going where they want to go threads. It's a great contrast. I really like that.
Thanks. I was experimenting a lot with double weave during this time. That is definitely my favorite form of weaving. And at this point I had done confetti puzzle about a year before I started these pieces. So I felt like I had already done the big, like I felt like I had explored color in double weave pretty extensively in that. And I was ready to move on to other things like the structure of the piece. What else can we do with this? I did these all on just 16 shaft floor looms. Nothing was like digital or anything. And I was very into all of my work being hand manipulated. See how far can I go on just this loom and my hands, you know? So.
Well, we're going to look at this next piece called, well, actually, the exhibit was called Entangled.
Mhm.
And that it closed in February. Unfortunately, too bad we weren't talking in February. But you described the work as a collection of my connecting threads, literal, metaphorical, and metaphysical. So again, it's more of that theme you were talking about, that connection. And I just think it's interesting that this is, I'm not sure the right word to say, but it's like a collection. The exhibit is a collection as well as an exhibit. So can you talk more about these pieces?
Yeah. So the show itself, the sort of theme I was going for was the idea that we can never be fully separated from those to which we have ties, whether it's literally human relationships. In my artist statement for that show, I also talked about a lot of different ideas and how that expresses human relationships, the theory of quantum entanglement. Two particles, no matter how far away they are in space, can still affect each other. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a great follow-up because on the left we have disconnect, and then the one on the right is connect, correct?
Yes.
Right. And then the whole connection of these other two pieces of the blue one with the circle inside the two circles. Great connect. I mean, what a big example of connect.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a lot of fun experimenting with this show. The two wovens that you see that are big on the wall, connect and disconnect, were from, like I said before, my senior exit show. And this show opportunity came to me around November, and I haven't had a space to have a studio yet since graduating. So it was a lot of throwing things together, but it was really fun to have the opportunity to be able to not only create work for a show, because I've already done that, but also kind of curate some of my own stuff that exists. And it was a curatorial experience that I quite haven't had before. So I really enjoyed that. It was great. But I glad you mentioned the sculpture pieces as well, because those were what I think I had the most fun with. Since graduating, I've been experimenting with like soft sculpture a little bit. And those were just so fun to make. I want to do so much more with that idea. So looking forward to that.
Well, another interesting thing about this exhibit was that 20% of the sales went toward the Athens mutual aid. Now is that unusual that the money from an exhibit goes to a cause like this, or?
I think it depends on exhibit to exhibit. Arts and Athletics is the name of the gallery space that hosted this one for me in Athens. And for each one of the exhibiting artists that they have, they allow them to pick an organization, and we donate 20% of the sales from the show to them, to whoever the artist picks. I picked mutual aid in Athens because they do a ton in our town for just everyone. Really, they try to focus on the houseless population in Athens, because as much money gets thrown into UGA in this town, like the community of this town doesn't see a lot of it. So I think it's really important, especially as somebody who came into this town from elsewhere, to be giving back to the community that has suffered at the expense of the place that I was there for sure. So also, I feel like for me, my work being so personal and the idea of community being so strong, I think in the queer community, I just think like giving back to my community is something that's really important for me. Because I've also picked mutual aid in the past when I've there's some prints on my website right now, I think, that I'm donating some of those proceeds to them as well. But
oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, Athens is definitely UGA football focused. So
Mhm.
I understand exactly what you mean. Yeah. Well, you really enjoy color. These works that we're going to look up next are just, the color just explodes, but it does it in a very organized and effective way. It's not just kind of random colors that don't work well together. It's just gorgeous. Where do you think you learned your color sense, or is this just innate, something you know?
Well, I can remember being obsessed with very bright and bold colors since I was young as well. When I was 11, I painted some of the walls in my room hot pink. So don't know that I do that now, but the want for this brightness around me has been there for a long time. I think my sense and skill to be able to curate it and create it and compose it in a way that's not a hot pink bedroom has developed over time, just through experience, my education, trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't. Yeah, when I went to college, like I said, I didn't have any idea what I was doing really when I first got there. I didn't have a big artistic creative background on me. I still to this day don't have great strong technical drawing skills and things like that you see like when you're first getting to art school, that you just feel behind on skills. So I kind of had to find what I was good at, and like really, like I felt like I honed in on those things instead of, because I don't have a problem with not having a lot of technical drawing skills also. That's just not my thing. I admire everyone who can do it so much, but it's like, everybody has their things. We all have to find our things. We strengthen our skills. Life would be so boring if we were all doing the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, I also, like you said, it is very controlled and organized, because I feel like I try to maintain the sense of like organized chaos in my work. And I feel like my work style as well. That's a good way to describe it. But I like we were talking about double weave, the way that it gives you this like nice organized structure. I love like geometry and shapes within my work. But I still just feel like color grabs people's attention as well, which is something I want to do with my work. In school, like obviously a lot of what we're doing is for classes and class projects, and you have your freedom, but there are those constraints. My exit show, which is what Disconnect and Disconnect were from, was the first time that I made like such a quantity of such like colorful, explosive work that people were really responding to it more and well when I started doing that too. And I was noticing that and noticing what was working for me. Also with that theme, Growing Pains was the title of my exit show. The theme of Growing Pains, again, was sort of exploring the metamorphosis from queer child to adult, and going from being timid to comfortable and confident in my identity. So I feel like just that brightness of color almost brought about this element of grabbing the audience's attention and forcing them to look at it almost the way that I would now like be so confident in my identity that it is that bright about me. If I'm describing that well, I think it worked really well with my theme, and with all of this, like, and other themes that I've explored since, that I just think it's just worked out really well for me. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about designing like those pieces. You talked about you don't feel like you're a technical person, but do you sit down and like draw it out ahead of time and say, I'm going to put this green here, I'm going to put this blue here? Or do you design it as you go when you're on the loom?
Oh no, I am a very plan ahead person.
Are you really?
So
Okay.
much. Yes. My iPad is full of sketches. I'll get on Procreate and I will like turn my grid down. I'll get a canvas size that's the exact size of my woven. I'll turn my grid down to where like each pixel is an inch, and I will like stripe out my warp and do like another layer. Like it's crazy. That's where the organization comes in. Like it looks, yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
We may need you to teach a class like that. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
So you talked about three-dimensional. So when you're going back to a design question, when you're designing, is two-dimensional different than three-dimensional when you're designing or working? I mean, I know it is, but how is it different when you're actually in the middle of it? Yeah, so we have two three-dimensional pieces here.
Yeah, I think for these, on these specifically, I know that the dimension was definitely added just for like the tactile. I love, like, fiber is so tactile, right? And I just love to play with that quality of it and see how you can emphasize it in a work and just change it, play around with it, convey different conceptual ideas with it. The piece on the right is Connect, the other piece from my exit show. And so in contrast from Disconnect, where it was, we had those strings hanging out and it's unraveling at the seams and things are falling apart. This one is very densely packed, and all of the dimension you see is from hand knotted raya knots, and it's super dense tufts of linen coming out, and you can like touch it and feel it and like connect with the piece physically, literally. So for me, it's very much about like really pulling and driving all of my conceptual themes home there. The one to the left was, I don't think I did that one much earlier. I really don't think there was a ton of conceptual ideas that went into it. It was just like a design and let's go. But I, even looking at it now, like I haven't looked at this piece in a while, but I'm like, I love like the richness, the texture, and like it's just, it's fluffy. I don't know, like that sounds so silly, but I'm like, there's something about the depth and complexity that it can give a piece, and bringing it back to what I said earlier, like me being obsessed with how much can I do just like with my hands on this loom, like what can I add to this? It's fun to explore.
The one thing I liked, the one on the left, was that I thought how interesting it was that these both in a way are kind of connect. And I was thinking about how these, like the orange, connects up to the blue, and then, it breaks away from it and it comes back to it. I was struck by it. It kind of has that same theme again, which I could be completely wrong, but that's what struck me when I saw it, was that, yeah, it connects, it pulls away, it connects. So I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah. That I think the visual behind this piece was a picture of like broken ice, like a body of water that had frozen, and then like the ice had, yeah.
I like this. Yeah. Well, this next work we're going to talk about hand dyed. The warp is hand dyed, and I was just curious about how important that is for you. And why. I think it's amazing all the reactions we get from artists about dyeing. It's everything from how it fulfills things they need to, I want certain colors, and everything in between. So can you talk some about your need to, or wanting to design by dyeing your own colors?
Yeah.
And before you go on, I want to say, this is the piece from Knoxville, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, this was the Yardage piece that won at Knoxville.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So dyeing was like one of the first things I learned how to do in school. So
really,
yeah, it was like,
good.
Yeah, it was our like textile foundations class. It's like the first unit that we go over is dyeing fabric, which yarn isn't that much different.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that they're like, you can figure this out after this, and we did. So, but it was one of the first things I learned. And then once I got to weaving, then it was an option to dye yarn, obviously. And I came to find out very quickly that I was not very satisfied with the intensity of colors of warp appropriate yarns that we had on our weaving shelf.
Oh, okay.
This was also during my second semester of taking weaving classes, and the projects leading up to this one during that semester, I did have several projects where I ended up getting the warp on there and then having to take it off and start over because of the yarn I had chosen. So I was determined to stick with the ones that I knew were safe at this point. So I wanted more than what we had. So I wanted like this bright, like what you see here. I wanted this, and just, it doesn't always come like that pre-dyed. You can get it, but also I wasn't in control at that point of ordering yarn all the time. So I did find out very quickly that I could make any color I want very intensely, very easily in the dye lab. So then I've never looked back. I don't think I've done an undyed warp since this piece. But
Now, is this double weave?
it is. This is,
Okay.
yeah, the double weave block with,
The colors are just wonderful.
thank you.
And again, I just love how there's all this activity, there's all these colors, but they work so well together. I have color envy. I don't do this well. This is just so nice how they just work so perfectly together.
Thank you. Yeah.
It tends
A
to
lot
be
of-
mud.
A lot of planning, a lot of planning and ideas go into it. The funny thing is, because I was talking about that earlier, the samples leading up to this yardage were the first time I had done double weave block, I believe. No, yes, it was. And I had done double weave before, but I hadn't done it to this intense like color. Like my warp on this was, one of them was literally rainbow striped and the other one was white. So it was either I am just lightening my colors or they're becoming something completely else because you're weaving through rainbow stripes. And me being the control freak planning person that I am about my work, was having these ideas for samples and then they weren't turning out to what I had envisioned. So, I mean, it wasn't a bad result by any means, but I definitely had to like learn how to let go of some of the control through this, which I think is pretty ironic, but funny how weaving will teach you the lessons you don't know you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are also not just a weaver, you're also a printer, that you have some beautiful screen prints. And I was curious again, how are these two forms related for you, or are they?
I say they are and they aren't. I mean, I don't think my practice is complete without either one of them. They do such different things for me because, as I was talking about earlier, like not being as into like technically drawing or like illustrating things. However, like this is where I do that and do enjoy doing that, but still you see like the color comes in with it for me. So they're related a lot to me in that way. I learned how to do them in the same semester, which was a really long semester in school. I do remember that. They go together like that for me. But right now at my job, I do a lot of screen printing. So I'm doing that pretty much weekly.
What do you do right now? What are you doing?
Right now I'm the art assistant at State Label in Athens, Georgia. We're a women's clothing company and like interior brand. Super fun job. Love it so much. I spend all day just like painting clothes and cushion covers and screen printing stuff and whatever other experiments and projects my boss has me doing. So it's super fun. I love it so much, but we do a lot of screen printing there. So it's been cool to see the difference in how I learned to screen print at school and how we're doing it there also, because at UGA we learned with like we did like emulsion and light tables and had a big giant pressure washer and a washout booth and the long screen printing tables with the rails, and we're doing these like yardages and repeat. At State we don't have quite the setup for resources either, just like space wise. So it's a much more casual printing process, which is kind of funny to me because it's like things get drilled in your head in school. It's like, you got to do it this way. And it's sometimes there are more than one way to do things, or Wow. Yeah. But also I've learned like how to do it with how to prepare screens with like drawing fluid and screen filler. That's what we do there. So I've learned that process, which has been really fun. For me also, just all of my work, whether weaving or screen printing, is very process heavy. I enjoy the process. I love a meditative process. And I think that just as much with weaving, you get that in screen printing. You get that like big, for me, like design planning phase, and then experimentation with color, and then also the same like slow work, repetitive manual labor, which I also really do enjoy that aspect of work and fiber. And I think I meant to say this earlier when you asked me about getting started in fiber. I loved, like, what made it stand out for me was the combination between just like being creative and like that aspect of it, and like, but also just the hands-on work. I love that so much. Getting my hands dirty is the best kind of work for me. So fun. So yeah.
That's an interesting contrast, because unless you're dyeing, there's not much dirty, get your hands dirty. So it's almost like the printing part gives you that in some ways too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, all that gorgeous color,
Yes.
beautiful color.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's continue on that theme of out of college. So what else? It sounds like when you get out in the real world, and I know that was true for me too. It's like, oh, you got to do it this way. And then you get out in the real world and go, well, sometimes that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
what else have you noticed in this year of being out of school? What else are some of the biggest changes about your life since then?
Yeah. So when I graduated, I had kind of had a rough past year for just like some personal things were going on and all that, but I knew I needed just kind of like some time to rest. That was all I really knew when I graduated, which was kind of crazy and scary because, as I've talked about, I'm a big planner. But I stayed in Athens. I'm still living in Athens as of right now, but I stayed there. I ended up, before I got the job at State, I was doing house painting on historic homes in this all-women's painting company that's in town. That was really
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was super fun. So I got to do that. It was experience in that, which was cool. I'll never have to hire painters in my life if I don't want to. So fun. But that was really cool. That was also, there was some creative element of that too, because like the girl that owns it was like doing web design stuff. She's like screen printed t-shirts and merch and has wanted me to do stuff for that. So like it's been a really cool like creative connection that I found in town for just a variety of different types of projects. So
Well,
that's,
I have to ask, this really doesn't have anything to do with Textiles and Tea, but I know Mandy wants to know too. So how is the approach to a historic house painting different than a regular house painting?
I don't know all of the ins and outs.
You know more than I do. So
yeah, I do know sometimes it depends. Like we did a lot of exteriors, so we'd start a lot of the times like you got to scrape away all that paint that's like peeling off. Sometimes it would be a matter of, do we need protective gear? Is this lead paint? Just considering things like that, just because of the age of a lot of the houses in Athens, like it's still out here. But just like making sure we're like catching all the paint chips then and cleaning them up. Also just a lot of like protective measures go into the middle stages of that process. Like we'll usually have a carpenter out there like replacing sideboards that need to be replaced for us. We're doing this, I don't remember what it was called, but there was usually like this sealant type of thing we would paint on the sides of the house that like sealed the paint where you would stop scraping, like the difference. I don't know what to call it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So just kind of like taking care of it. Just a little more work, I think, in the middle phases to keep up with like the preservation of the place.
now, did you have to use certain colors that were like historical colors, or was that not
I'm
Okay.
unsure. I didn't know that much about. I know our clients got to pick their colors for the most part, so I don't know if there were guidelines. I don't know about like historic Athens society stuff. Yeah.
Well, what's next for you? Because I know you've got some exciting things coming up for you, right?
Yes. So in June, I will be starting a new job that I will be the textile designer and graphic designer for House of Nayar in Chicago, which is a ethical luxury fashion brand that is going to be coming soon. We're still starting things up. But the CEO and my boss, her name's Sandhya Nair. She's from India, and her passion for this company is to work with Indian artisans and weavers and mainly make sure that they're being paid ethical wages also, and the way that we're working with them, which is something I was so excited to get behind and support. I'm very excited. I'll be moving probably in August, since we're starting off remote, so got to figure out some things over here, but I'll be doing their textile and graphic design stuff. So pattern making, hopefully some stuff with weaving. When I interviewed, she was very interested in my weaving portfolio. So this kind of a crazy pipe dream to get paid to do weaving stuff, and it's coming true. So look at that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. Okay, all you Chicago weavers, you're going to have a new weaver in your midst later this year, so we'll have to get you hooked up with all of them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, we have some questions. Shall we take questions?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. All right. Oh, this is a good question. This is from Kathy Wilcox. Are your 3D sculptures, and I'm assuming this popped up pretty early, so I'm assuming we're talking about the rings that were intertwined. She wanted to know, do you weave those flat and then form them and stuff them, or are they woven in that way?
So neither of those were woven. Actually, I didn't do any weaving on those two.
Okay.
I would love to do some soon where I weave, but unfortunately, my loom has been in storage at my parents' house since I bought it. So soon, when I move, I'm gonna have space for my loom too. So we will be making new things. But the blue one that you saw actually was just found vintage, like backstock fabric that I found at an estate sale at somebody's house for free. And then the other one without the tassels was a screen printed yardage of mine that I cut up and did. So they were both cut and sewn from a pattern that I drafted.
Oh, here, this is a good question. Marcia Steele, I think it's Steele. What's an exit show? I guess we should have talked about that.
Oh yes, sorry. That's it's just the show that you do at the end of your bachelor, like BFA degree that I did. Some people call it a thesis show, exit show, senior show. They're all one and the same. We just used exit show at the school I went to.
How do you bring your feeling for color and 3D design to fashion? If you have, this is from Mary Holm.
Yeah, so I haven't done a ton of garment construction. That was not something that was part of the program that I went to. What I have done has been self-taught. I really want to get into it more. I've been like saying that for like the last couple of weeks. I looked at my partner the other day and I was like, if I just like disciplined myself and made myself like learn garment construction, I could do so many things. But there were classes where I did have projects that I did do garment construction. One was our material futures class, which was basically a machine sewing class. I did a jacket that was like a patchwork jacket that I took a big thing of fabric and cut it up and dyed it a bunch of different colors, and then cut it into a bunch of shapes, did my crazy planning thing on my iPad and cut out a bunch of shapes and sewed them together to make a patchwork yardage that then I cut out a jacket pattern out of and did that. So, and then my job now, I guess, would probably be the closest I've done to garment colored a garment, even though most of the time it's not things that I'm necessarily designing, but it is like painting a lot of clothes. And my boss, her like aesthetic, her, as much as I hate to use that word, but like the trying to find a better word, but I can't. But anyway, as much as I hate that word, it's comparable to mine. We both like a lot of color. We work together well. So I think doing that has given me a lot of ideas too. It's inspired me a lot. So I'm excited to see what I might do with it in the future.
Well, a lot of people are asking about your shirt. I love your shirt. So
Thank you. I thrifted my shirt.
you what?
I thrifted my shirt.
You did.
Yes.
It's great.
Thanks.
Can you talk about any installation, indoor or outdoor, that you've worked on and how they came together? This is from Karen LeBlanc.
Yeah. So I think the best one to talk about would be my exit show, my senior show, because with Entangled, I got to drop that off and my curator did that all for me. She was so great. But yeah, so I wish I had photos of my exit show to show you guys too. Unfortunately, the gallery that I was in for my exit show is the only one with like no windows. So the lighting, they're just photos that like I won't use for things because they're just not good photos, unfortunately. But it was the 2 panels and then a chair that I had upholstered to give you a visual. And the panels hung from the ceiling in the background because I wanted them off the wall. I was so obsessed with that and made it so much harder for myself because of that. But yeah, with that we had like months to plan that as well. So I knew I wanted to weave because that's always been like my number one, my favorite thing to do. So I took forever to come up with my theme, honestly, way too long. And then I think I started with planning both the wovens, and I knew I wanted to do some sort of piece of furniture in the middle, because I wanted to give it like a very homey theme. And then from there, I just kind of, once I had the colors for my wovens, I designed a pattern on my iPad for the chair, got that printed with spoon flower, had them send me the fabric. One of my friends had experiencing upholstering a chair once in high school, and she came over and we figured it out over a couple weeks, and made everything. And then the day of installation was crazy, and I had this like striped background to go on the wall, and we weren't supposed to put anything sticky on the wall, and I ended up having to break some rules, which maybe I shouldn't be outing myself for that now, but it's all fine now. Got it up, ended up having to sneak back in to the gallery after they closed it up to put some final touches on things, but plenty of people do that. That is a one of the grad schools came in to like check, not the grad school, one of the grad students came in to check like the light. Like I scared her, she scared me. I was like, am I okay in here? She's like, you're fine. They were so sweet. It was just a crazy experience. But
yeah, I was saying, you're going to Chicago, you don't care. They're gonna come find you now, right?
They would have found me already if it was an issue.
Kathy Wilcox said she loved your work and said to say thanks. She was the first question that we asked.
Oh, thank you.
What is the largest dimensions of a piece that you worked on? Probably that one you're talking about in your exit show, right? Those panels.
Either that, I think the one from Convergence might be a little like slightly bigger.
How big was that? Just a guesstimate so people get an idea.
I know it's 36 wide, and I think it's a little over 7 feet long.
Okay.
So the other ones are about 66 inches long, I think. So they're a little smaller.
Everybody's asking about the software you were talking about on your iPad.
I use Procreate because I draw a lot of it, but for weaving software on my iPad, I use iWeave
I weave it.
it.
Procreate is Adobe.
It's I think it's just like its own brand. It's not by
All right.
yeah, but it's like a drawing app basically. It a lot more user friendly than any Adobe thing. I do a lot for like the pattern making classes where we had to do like 4-way repeating patterns on Photoshop. I would do all of my drawing in Procreate and then take it to Photoshop and do the pattern making.
Yeah, I've heard other people talk about Procreate. I need to check that out.
It is amazing.
All right. In your new job, this is from Jennifer Verl, would you travel to India? Because she was saying you can learn so much from the amazing weavers and other fiber workers there. Will you get to go to India, do you think?
I'm really hoping I do. My boss did ask me about it in my interviews. She made sure I was okay with it. I was down for it. And I was like, absolutely, please.
Yeah, like, twist my arm. Oh, twist my arm. Make me go.
Yeah, no, literally. I'm like, oh, please,
Please.
please send me. I'd love to go. Yeah, I'm
that'd
really
be
looking
amazing.
forward to that. I hope that happens because I would love to go. I have so much to learn.
That could be a really good article for some, weaving magazine like Weave Spin Dye,
Yeah.
You should keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Oh, they wanted to know what was the name of the company in Chicago.
House of Nayar.
Spell that. Nayar. Oh, Nayar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all keep your eyes open for it. You can say, I knew her when. Somebody else asked about, do you do any kind of like utilitarian weaving? So many of us do towels and scarves and that kind of thing. Or do you think of your work much more like sculptural?
I haven't done a ton of utilitarian weaving because most of my experience weaving has been in school at this point still, when I was doing certain projects that I had to do and stuff. However, once I have my loom in a space in Chicago where I can access it and weave all the time, I am wanting to do more just like utilitarian, like craft projects with more like of an end use than just for the sake of art.
I got another question. Since you're so close to being out of school, what would you tell somebody who's going in? They want to be a fiber artist or an artist in general, but especially a fiber artist, kind of looking back, maybe talking to yourself as you got ready to start school. What would you tell people?
Yeah, I'd just say like follow. I think the biggest thing is don't worry about what you think you should be doing and do what like feels right, what you want to be doing. I think also like dedicating the time to the work while you're there and like really appreciating the resources you have, which I'm sure everyone would say, because now that it's been a year, I miss the resources so badly.
Oh.
And there were just times that it was like I know you're going to be stressed and you're working on projects constantly, but if you have it within yourself to do that extra thing that you want to do, that you're not going to have that resource to do later, do it. Don't put it off.
Well, when you were interviewing, this may sound kind of stupid. When you were interviewing for this job in Chicago, or maybe the one here in Athens, were you surprised that something that you had done during school, a project or anything, all of a sudden became really important during that interview, or was a real asset during the interview?
My weaving portfolio. Yeah, completely. Okay. Because when I found that job posting, I found it on LinkedIn and it was for, I think, assistant fashion designer. So it was more the beginning, the whole first bit of the interview, she was asking me much more fashion based questions. And I felt like giant imposter syndrome because I don't have a fashion design degree. But then she like switched to my weaving portfolio and was super interested in that. And like the whole interview kind of shifted to like, instead of fashion design, would you want to do stuff with like weaving samples for like handbags and blah, 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 blah. So then I got hired as the textile designer instead.
Really? So it was a different job that you interviewed for that you got?
Yeah.
Okay.
So And she told me afterward that I did well during the whole interview, but I definitely felt much better when we were talking about weaving than when we were talking about garment construction and fashion design.
Right. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being on here today, Lauren. It was wonderful. And I'm
Yeah.
just so excited for you. I can't wait to hear about your adventures in Chicago. It just sounds wonderful. And maybe we'll have to get you to come back on Careers in Textiles and share more with, the students who are going, into school right now, what they need to know. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, it was so great to come on here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank our sponsor. I'm sorry. First of all, if you want to see more of Lauren Stichweh's work, Lauren, you have a great website. I'm so impressed. Check out our website. There's more information there about what she does, her work, and the other things besides the weaving, much more. If you really liked her printing, there's more of that there. There's some of the print screen that's for sale. So take a look at that. And I know you're going to add more stuff as you keep going, right, Lauren?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. We want to follow your adventure. So thank you so much. And again, I want to thank our sponsor. It was the Cross Border Weavers in honor of, in memory of Ken Allen. And again, what a great way to take care of your own. What a nice thing to do for him and his family. So way to go, Cross Borders. Thank you so much. Sorry. I'm going to get over this soon, I promise. If you would like to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea, you can go to our website at weavespindye.org and you can sign up for a specific date that you would like to have your guild, your business, or even you sponsor. So we look forward to you doing that. We've got some great speakers coming up. We've got dates open from now to the end of the year. So if you're interested, go online, take a look at it, or give me a call. I'll be glad to talk about that with you. We have the hand towel exchange coming up this summer. Don't have to wait for Convergence for that. If you've been in it before, you know how much fun it is. The Zoom afterwards is great. You get to see who made the towels for you and who's got your towels. It's a wonderful experience. I encourage you all to get involved in that. It's open right now. If you want more information, please go to our website. You can learn all the details about sizes, when it's due, where you need to send it. And all of that's on weavespindye.org. If you want to be involved in Convergence, it's hard to believe we are in the middle of Convergence 2024. If you want to be a vendor or you want to be a sponsor, please contact us and we would love to talk with you about that. We've got vendors signing up already. They're taking advantage of the super early bird special and they want to get in there and get their booths early. So if you are a vendor, if you have a business and you're interested in being in Convergence when it's in Wichita, please go online and sign up, or you can give me a call if you have any questions. If you would like to sponsor an event, we have everything that you could possibly want to sponsor. And if there's something that's not on the list, we'll talk about it. We can get you a sponsorship going. So thank you so much for doing that. If you want to continue to support HGA, and we thank everyone who's donated to the Fiber Trust, your memberships, they help these programs keep going. Textiles and Tea, Career in Textiles, Spinning and Weaving Week. We're working hard on that right now. All of those are supported through Fiber Trust and your donations and sponsorships. So thank you all who've all done that already. If you've missed any of the episodes and you would like to watch them again, want to watch them with a friend, you can watch them on HGA's Facebook page, or you can watch them on YouTube. I encourage you to sign up for the YouTube, because when they come up and we download them, you'll get a notice. And you'll know right away which episodes have been uploaded. Next week, we got somebody exciting, Nithiku, and I'm pronouncing her name very badly, and I apologize, Nimkulrat. She does beautiful work, and you'll be excited to see her. Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great week, and happy tea.